Hey everybody, and welcome to Passive House Accelerator Live, where we explore how to create healthy buildings that both slash greenhouse gas emissions and make us more resilient to the impacts of climate change. We'll dive into how passive house design principles are applied in the real world and how these buildings improve the lives of the people who live, work, and play in them. On the first and third Wednesday of the month, we'll feature the Project Showcase edition of Passive House Accelerator Live. And on the second and fourth Wednesdays, we'll feature the Construction Tech edition. Every Wednesday is for the Passive House newbie and the Passive House expert alike. If you are new to Passive House, check out the 101 section of our website for a primer. With that, please enjoy this Construction Tech edition of Passive House Accelerator Live, co-hosted by Kevin Brennan, Shannon Pendleton, Shaun St-Amour, and Mark Willey. And as questions occur to you during the show, please type them into chat and we'll get to them during the discussion session. Thanks.
Awesome.
Good evening,
Thanks,
everybody.
Jay.
Kick us off, Kevin.
Hey guys, I'm Kevin Brennan, coming to you live from my truck in Brooklyn, traveling back from traffic hell from Long Island. I'm really excited to have my good friend Shaun present about putting a pin in it with airtightness holes and how to avoid them. I know myself, I've chased around my fair share of leaks and thought, oh man, is this death by 1,000 cuts or is it one large hole? Is it one large hole or is it death by 1,000 cuts? I can't figure it out. So Shaun's going to give you those tips, and I hope to answer any questions in the chat, share my experience, and I'm going to kick it over to one of the other co-hosts. But beautiful day here in New York City, and let's get this party started.
Thanks, Kevin. Welcome, everybody. If you're new here, get the chat open, rename yourself with where you're from, and find a friend and get ready for a great night because Shaun St-Amour is here. And if you don't know him, he's already like one of the family, and he's so talented. He's so good in real life. He's so good on the camera, and he's so great on the job site. We are not surprised he's back there more often than not now. And rumor has it he's also building something with his dad, which you'll probably hear about later. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Mark.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Shannon. And Jay, great to have you tonight. And the intro was fantastic. So, folks, it's really exciting to be here every Wednesday. My name is Mark Willey. I'm thrilled to be a part of Passive House Accelerator because I get to meet each of you and I get to read your comments. I get to see your questions. Tonight, I encourage you to define for other people what you see that is technical, what is technique, and what is technology. So just use that word in the chat and give the reference when you see a good comment or a good phrase from Shaun so that we're picked up on what you're seeing and we know that that was something that landed for you and we will use it again. Shaun is a great friend. He's been transitioning in British Columbia to wear more hats and more boots, but I don't want to really say much more about it because we have a surprise, and that is Michael Ingway with the introduction.
Thanks, Mark. So I'm Michael Ingway with Baxt Ingway Architects, also founder of the Passive House Accelerator. And I am pretty happy that they asked me to introduce Shaun. I'm proud to call Shaun St-Amour a friend and a colleague. And for those of you who do not know him, which is probably very few, he is co-founder of Construction Tech. He was with 475, both as a product consultant and an outreach associate. And now he is VP of operations at Clay Construction. There's so many good things to know about Shaun. One is just how knowledgeable he is as a person, but also how openly he shares that knowledge, the energy he brings to the table, and that just brings everyone else out. Everyone else wants to share the same, and it's electric, and it's what makes construction. It's one of the things that makes construction tech so exciting. So tonight he's going to be diving into the tiniest of issues that can pose some of the biggest challenges to blower door scores. Pinholes. How not to put a pin in it. Go for it, Shaun.
Wow, you guys. Oh, I'm feeling the love. All right, let's deal with the technology, the technical, and the technique by hopefully launching this quickly here. So hopefully everyone can see slides. We're good. We're good to go, Houston. All right, everybody, here we go. Buckle in. You got to listen to me for a little bit, but there'll be a little bit of interaction. So we're talking about how to not put a pin in it. Let's dive into it. So every building you build from now on, you're going to think of it of a balloon. And anytime that there's a pinhole, you just pop the balloon. And we don't want that. So we're going to focus on air control. Now, there's a little bit about me. I'm just going to add a little bit more. So as indicated, for those that don't know me, just turned into VP of Operations with Clay Construction. Been with the Accelerator for almost 2 years. We've been doing this. This is amazing. I'm also involved in Haven, which is the local home builders Association of Vancouver, as co-chair of technical and the education training. So you can tell I love this. You're going to hear about how much I love this. And that also means I get to be VP of airtightness for the team at Clay Construction. I've got a great family, 2 beautiful daughters, a beautiful wife that honestly make my life so warm. Unfortunately, though, the kids are growing up and I've been demoted as master builder in the Lego world. I'm now master supervisor. I don't know if that's a promotion or demotion, but I'm taking it. So I'm just a big kid having a lot of fun. Now, I'm very passionate about sustainable prefab passive homes, and they should be affordable. I have to say language is critical. And I'm kind of using that word resiliency a little bit more in the last few weeks of watching a Monty Paulson presentation. Now, the Harveys out there, when we talk about affordable, high performance is affordable because the air control should be a line item in your mechanical budget. It's not in the WRB budget. It's not in the vapor control budget. It's in the mechanical budget. And we're going to dive into it. So pin that idea about cost because we'll dive it into the questions. So February has been a very exciting month here on Passive House Accelerator Live. Of course, you see what I did there in spelling. The whole month has been on the theme of air tightness. And we've had a great lineup of speakers. We had Ed May, who literally we could listen to every Wednesday if he could. And he gave us great 10 tips. I really like how he defined planning, building, and testing in terms of air tightness. Then we had good old friend Kevin come on, and one of the slides that I love, and again, take this away for you as well if you miss it, test early and test often. Wise words, Kevin. Last week we had Shannon Taylor. We went down across the pond where we got to see this really amazing home that they created. And I love how their office is in the upstairs. And so they have a pretty short commute to their office. But you can see, look at that red line test. That is pretty simple to define and make sure that you've got your air barrier under control. So now it's a little bit of my turn. So you've had great speakers and now I got to wrap it up. Well, I have to say, I think I can provide a couple of nuggets left in the month of February for air control. So 475 High Performance Building Supply for about 3.5 years, I got to work with some amazing clients, tradespeople, builders, some buildings that I don't know if I will ever match, but they're definitely the benchmark for me, where they were passive house, really good air tightness scores, living building challenge, and really working on that zero carbon home. Really exciting things. And so I've been able to learn a few things that I want to share. And as Mike said, I will share with you all of what I have all day long because we need to scale this big time. So take all this information and let's run, folks, because we know that if we can measure what we're doing, we are then able, isn't that the best retro photo ever of a blower door? But not also a blower door. In case you're not sure, if we dove past, if you're a bit of a rookie tonight that hasn't been to our events, how about draft detection? Okay, we always get caught up with blower doors. You can really think about you're measuring the drafts in your home. So I want to make sure we're a little clear on the language. The draft detector doesn't lie. You measure things. And so if you don't like the idea of your building being this balloon, well, what about thinking about that all of your buildings are a submarine? That if it's watertight, it's probably going to be airtight too. And if you don't like thinking about your buildings as submarines? What about spaceships? I would love to find out what the air leakage on this thing is. 2 years ago, when we started the Passive House Happy Hour, I came on and said, I would love to see it. It's been 2 years. I got to figure this out before they cancel this and bring it back. And Elon Musk brings up another one. But could you imagine measuring, putting a draft detection device on the International Space Station? Bit of a bucket item for me. So we've got a system now. I'm trying to get you to look at your buildings differently, that we need to make sure we're looking at all the pinholes in your air barrier. So at Clay Construction, I've got a bit of a challenge. We set out that from now on, we are going to only build to step code 5. That's 10 years ahead of the code. So right now, the code in Vancouver, or sorry, in BC, is now at step code 3. So that means the minimum that we have to meet is 2.5 air changes. To me, it's not good enough. If we're putting a membrane on our buildings, if we're putting on the air tightness, we should be able to get to a lower score. Now, this is a building that we got to work on. It's at mid-construction, already hovering around 1, and we're going to fine tune it because I'm competitive. And so 1 is what we need to be in 10 years. So we are future-proofing our homes today. That's future-proofing with a PH, of course, but we're giving our clients homes that they won't get to for other competitors for 10 years. Now, the thing about this is you look at this looks different, right? It is different because we're taking the time to gift wrap this home. So when we present this home to our clients, we're gift wrapping it to them. We're saying, hey, you wanted a house? Guess what? We gift wrapped it. And on the front door, I'm going to stick a bow on it and say, here you go. Your home is now future-proofed to a code that is 10 years ahead. And all we did is pay attention to the details. It already got wrapped. We just wrapped it better. We looked at how we connected things from one section to another. We took the time to make sure the pinholes were in check. And where did this all start from? Because we had a plan. Now, here's the one thing you should have, folks, for today. If you take away one thing, it's this. Because if you've been following along on our construction tech, we've always talked about mentors. Many years ago, when I got involved in this, James Roger was really working hard with the City of Vancouver builders to figure out what is going on with builders and managing air tightness. And about 5 years ago, the average air tightness in Vancouver was 4.4. Next year, 4.1. The next year, they implemented some new bylaws to the code. It was minimum 3.5. It's now 2.5. But this gentleman trained most builders in Vancouver, and he wasn't maybe as nice. He's maybe a little hard around the edges. But guess what? When you heard, what is your plan? What is your plan? What is your plan? What is your plan? I'll say it again, folks. What is your plan? You left that arena knowing that you had a plan. So this is where we're going to take a little stop, because today we're going to do something we've never done on any of the Passive Accelerator events. We're going to make a pledge. We're all going to say, I will always have an air barrier strategy. In a couple seconds, you're going to unmute, and we're all going to say this together. We're going to have a pledge that all of you, the 92 of you that are here, I guess 91, you will, from now on, always build a building with an air barrier strategy. Okay, folks, undo your mute, and let's say this together. On the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. I will
always have an air barrier strategy.
Fantastic. Okay, mute yourselves. Now, we're going to leave this slide up a little longer, because I want you to not only take a visual picture of this, take a picture and post it, tag friends, because from now on, the 92 of you will always do this. And if not, I'll be coming after you like James Roger came after all of us many years ago to ensure that we have a plan. So you can take your mental photo. I'm going to make sure I have this because I want all you lovely faces in there. And I'm going to tag all you in my post tonight. And I'm serious. I'm going to leave this on for another 10 seconds. From now on, I've thrown the Kool-Aid at you to make sure every building you do, you have an air barrier strategy. And the reason this is so important is because when we first look at buildings, the first thing we do from a design standpoint in order of importance is we manage water. And so this is a point where I want you to think of Bruce Lee. So Bruce Lee, if you remember this quote, he says, "Be water, my friend." And of course, he spelled friend wrong. Oh, whoever's unmuted, we'll just have to mute you. This is the point where when we're designing our buildings, we want to make sure the key thing is keeping bulk water out of our buildings. And so bulk water is a design issue. We can take care of that out front. The vapor control is a design issue as well. We can take care of that. We can design for it. The amount of outsolation we put on our buildings, it's a modeling issue. It's also a budget issue. I would want you to have more insulation on, but some people give up at a certain budget. The air control, however, is a builder issue. This is something that you can do horribly wrong and maybe get a 10, or you can dial it in with a plan and get control of it. So all of you builders out there, this is where you can take control of your buildings. And when you look at it, when I said, hey, the air control is in your mechanical budget, it is, because we're talking heating and cooling right now. We're not talking about how, the membranes and how the building's wrapped. That's separate. Right now, we're talking about the heating and cooling device. And this particular item is now quickly driving your heating and cooling costs, but more importantly, comfort. So I actually really think that the membranes and tape community should change and remove the Swiss and German and Italian labels and put WRB, air barrier, the testing that's required for the building envelope, and then literally write comfort, energy efficiency, health, resiliency, durability. Because if you walked up to a building and it was white with Tyvek or a really cool color and said comfort, healthy, resiliency, which one would you buy? Because that's the material we're doing when we put on our product and we take the time and effort to dial this in. And you can see the numbers here going from 5, 3, 1.5, 0.6. And remember, this is Wolfgang Feist's home that he's been had for 30 years, air tests every 5 years, and it's been hovering around the 0.22. And he's making it look real good. So again, this is the certified passive house, great numbers. So now that I've got this whole concept now about how the air control is, we can now look at things. We can break down, like, okay, Shaun, I get air control is really important. I get that you've dumped it into the mechanical budget. I can wrap my head around how to put this and make it work, but how do I do it? Well, now there's 4 main areas that we need to identify of how we can work on making sure that our plan will work out in the performance. So we have the subgrade to above grade connections, wall to daylighting, wall to ceiling, and penetrations. And so even out of the 4, you'd be like, okay, Shaun, those are 4. I don't quite get how to connect those. Where should I start? Well, we'll break it down again. We're going to start in the penetration section, the pipe and cables, because we're going to want to eliminate the biggest hole in your air barrier. Now, this is actually a good penetration. This is the HRV that you want, but there are many other penetrations in your envelope that you want to get rid of. You want to get rid of some of the mechanical ones. The steel pipes, if they're not sealed properly, they're leaking, they're not efficient. You want to get rid of your bathroom fans. You want to get rid of your dryer ducts. You might even want to get rid of your hood fan. And I know that's going to come up in the questions, but if you like to have a hood fan, then you invest in mechanical damper to make sure when it closes off, it's nice and tight and actually helps out your air barrier. So we're now eliminating our 8-inch holes, our 6 inches holes, our 4-inch holes, and now we're getting down to pinholes. We're getting down to little things. And when we look at part of our plan of getting to zero carbon, we're probably going to electrify a lot of the equipment we're using. And by electrifying the units, guess what? The ductless dryer you're putting in, guess what? That 4-inch or 6-inch duct, gone. The hood fan, gone. The fresh air machine is replacing all of those leaky bathroom fans going out. So pretty quickly, by you making some decisions up front, you're actually helping out your air barrier strategy. And we're getting down to the pinholes that we want to eliminate. So let's talk about penetrations and materials to use and how to make it work. So again, breaking down for you, we're like, okay, Shaun, I have 3 choices here. Which one's the best one? I'm going to tell you. The first one you want to use, go to a lumber store, buy yourself a 2-foot by 100-foot roll of rubber, EPDM gaskets that you now can use. If for some reason you're organized, which hopefully you will, you could buy gaskets on the market. Otherwise, you're using tape, and tape is expensive. So you want to look at some more affordable options. Now, we talk about mock-ups in a little bit. You know I love a mock-up. Well, this case, I really like jigs. And so here is a jig that you could create that you literally have the roll of rubber, a knife, and the jig sitting on the shelf when your trades come and said, hey, I have a penetration that I need to cover. Now, this is an older jig. We just decided to create a new jig because, you know, things get older. But you can see now how quickly that gasket on the left goes around the pipe. Pretty simple. You can see each hole on the on that jig is either 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch smaller. So when you cut it out and you go over the pipe that is there, you can see that really nice seal. You can tape it or you can leave it, but now you've got 4 sides of the square. You can easily tape and make sure you're there. This guy's happy with his brand new jig. Works really well. Again, my good friend Norm did this on his project. Look at these really good detailed gaskets he did and the connections. Norm, bravo, love it. Had to include you in this. So now that we've got the penetrations and the pipes all figured out, now we have about 200 penetrations in our envelope, which are, anybody guess? Lighting, switches, plugs. And we can quickly eliminate those by creating a service cavity. By creating that service cavity, we're now not hurting the air barrier. The air barrier is now effective. And of course, you know I was going to throw a prefab photo in here at some point. So we've got these great examples of prefab where you can see the service cavities installed. So now we've gone from about 200 to 220 penetrations, correct? Because you think about in all of our lovely top floors now in our bedrooms, we've got anywhere from 4 to 8 pot lights. You add that up in all the different rooms, you got a lot of pot lights that are affecting. Now, if you can't do, a service cavity, what you could do from all your scrap plywood on your job sites is make light boxes where your cans can sit in, but now your plywood box is air sealed in the corners. You can either use tape or liquid applied air barrier or sealants to make sure this is done. And of course, when we've got our electrical cords going through, what's the rule? 1 wire through the hole once only, so you can properly tape and seal it. So now you've got your lights, they're contained, they're within the air barrier, and now you're dealing with about a dozen. And so we talk about a dozen, we know those dozens are going to be your HRV exhaust supply, a couple of hose bibs, probably in the front door, you're going to have maybe a camera, a doorbell, a light, and a couple other lights. So all of a sudden we went from 200 down to a dozen. And so now we can look at those pinholes because the scope of work is reduced by making sure the air barrier is on the outside of these devices. Now, here's a really cool option too, is if you can't put a service cavity in your roof, you could actually order a different type of truss system. So how this truss system works is you can have it 2 or 3 feet coming on the sides to make sure you can get the right amount of insulation on the upper slopes. But now you have the little cavity where you could put in your lighting and it's on the interior side of your air barrier. Truss companies now are considering this. If you're not sure, reach out to your local truss manufacturer. Be surprised of how they can make this work for you so you can get the insulation you need on the ends, but also make sure that you can have a really cool air barrier strategy. Now, what did I just talk about? The what wire? Again, 1 wire through the membrane, tape it, seal it, and you're off to the races. Now, I wanted to create a penetration schedule, but you know what? Somehow the universe works out well. I know Prudence, when she did her presentation a year ago, has a really good penetration schedule, but I just found this out this week. Energy Star actually has this thermal bypass inspection checklist that I'm hoping someone will throw into the chat. Again, I'm giving away stuff all day long. Now, I thought this was fantastic. Yeah, my good old friend Stephen Basic says, why don't you have a checklist in 3D? Because then everybody can see where all of the issues are. Now, you could take this to pretty much anybody and say, there's the penetration in the air barrier. We should be able to fix that. I love this. It's such a great thing. Hopefully more of you will adopt this in your buildings, because it's pretty clear of entering the building, if you have this posted, where these issues are going to be. Okay, so I just dealt with penetrations. The next thing is daylighting in the windows, because in a typical house, you're probably going to have 20 to 25 windows. And guess where the pinholes are? They're going to happen in the corners, because what happens in the corners? It's a tough part to either seal with rod and caulk or with tape. And so typically you're going to have 4 pinholes. So that's an area where you want to make sure you get the right tool to get it done. Now, depending on your window, you might have brackets coming in, and you want to make sure those are properly taped off and sealed as well, because right on the little edges, you've got pinholes. So we've gone through 200 penetrations. We've got air sealed now. We've got 25 windows. We've now airtight. We're getting down to the little ones, where we're looking at either the concrete to wood connection, because we've got different materials, and that one's a little bit more difficult compared to wall to ceiling, because that's just typically, you know, wood to wood, or it's the same material. So that's why there's a difference in the methodology there with that. I love a good mock-up, and you can see here again how they're able to tape up the edges to make sure it's carefully done, and you can see the metal clips, how those are properly taped. And again, good friend Norm, look at this job here in Philly, where he's able to do a really nice taping job and making sure that those high performance windows, again, difference too between code-based windows and high performance windows of how they're air sealed, but the issue of connecting the window to our air barrier membranes and tapes and sheathings or liquid applied materials needs to be dealt with. And typically you're going to see pinholes in the corner if you're not taking the time to finesse that corner. So yeah, so membranes or whatever material you're using to wrap it, again, as long as you're taping it or making sure those connections are there, it can get done, because you can see for the most part, that whole building is covered in membrane. Now you've got, you know, the tape seams that need to be taken care of, but for the most part, it is covered. Now, one of my favorite photos, look at this nicely gift wrap home that's going to go to the clients. I don't know about this, but I have literally thought, you know, you could put a bow on this and you know the clients are getting that gift wrap home. If you had to take away something from today, you can either just give them something where it's nicely wrapped and might be flapping in the wind, or you can wrap it and say, clients, I'm giving you a present, a high performance home where I took the cost of the extra stuff and put it in mechanical. I was able to reduce some of the other mechanical needs. And the best part too is the air barrier materials are passive. They don't have mechanical parts working. They're going to last, and they've been tested to last 50, 75, 100 plus years, where some of those mechanical pieces only last in 25. You might have to change it out 4 times. And if we're looking at building homes that are longer than 100 plus years, we're talking 200 plus years. On the Accelerator, we had one in Portland where they're talking about a 500-year-old building, and it's wrapped nicely. So things, food for thought. Now, another little connection detail just to inquire, because we've seen a lot on the build show, is using caulking or sealants to be able to connect from concrete to the bottom of your sills, connecting to the plywood. So again, you've got some air barrier continuity between that connection point. Now to kind of wrap things up, you know I love a mock-up. The mock-up is so great. The reason it's so great is here's a mock-up for a project. It's one window. On this multifamily project, they got about 80 windows. Copy and paste times 80. Copy and paste 10 times. You do all the details, show everybody, make sure it's there so everyone who enters the site knows this project is acting differently, it's working in high performance, and this is how you achieve it. And so every time they go through their walls, you're seeing this carried through. You can even have a complex one. This is one that we did recently at a project when I was with 475, where we had to go through the different details. Mock-ups are so critical for just reviewing things. And again, if it's messy, it's an opportunity to learn, because if you fail, you're giving yourself a chance to learn. So when you do a mock-up, fail hard, fail again, so that you can learn, you can implement the right strategy and succeed and accelerate. So to wrap things up here, what is your plan? What is your plan? What is your plan? I want you to go to your team tomorrow and start talking about your plan and work towards, hey, we've never done an air barrier, or so we've never done a draft detection on our project. So you know what? We're going to do one. We might fail, but if you haven't done it yet, you need to start somewhere. And I typically say is once you've been able to do once, work towards your passive house level of airtightness. If you fail on the way, you're making improvements. You're doing better than code. You're doing better than other people. You're giving yourself a competitive advantage in the marketplace. And the more you do it, the more affordable you get. You use less tapes. You'll get more resilient with the performance and the steps. As a builder, your focus is not only providing the client with a home that's on budget and on schedule with all the resources you can, but you have a great opportunity to manage airtightness. That is the gift of where Passive House is saying, hey, we'll take some of the design issues away. We'll model the insulation requirement. We'll model out thermal bridges. We'll model which performance of windows it's required. But in airtightness, this is where the builder can really succeed in failing or succeeding. When we look at how to achieve it, start looking at the penetrations, eliminate as many as you can, make sure your window connections are dialed in, then make sure your foundation to wall details are correct, and then wall to roof. And lastly, build a mock-up. You'll be surprised of how affordable they are, and you can move them from job to job. You can show different people at different stages. That you can show your clients so that everyone understands what is your plan. So happy air sealing, everybody. And I am done and looking forward to answering any questions that you may have. Again, lots of good stuff.
That's a great stuff, Shaun. The energy of that presentation was fantastic, and the information was wicked clear. I absolutely loved it. And I love the jig, and it brought back memories. You sent me that picture on like the second time I think I attended, or like maybe the first 7, you had that in there. And I said, I gotta have that jig. Yeah. So thanks for sharing not only your work, but a lot of folks here on the call sharing their work and all those best practices, and making us take a pledge. I didn't see any questions yet, but I know everybody has something to say. So I'll pass it off to Mark, and if Kevin's still around, Kevin, and then we'll hand it back to Mr. Fox if we need to.
I was about to say, Shannon, I am taking a screenshot right now that I'm sharing to social media that says, I will always have an air barrier strategy. Great pledge for tonight. Shaun, it was terrific. I see the faces in the crowd. When we don't have comments during the presentation as much, that's because people are trying to catch up to the presenter, right? All presenters are different, and we all feel it differently. This was wonderful. I enjoy the pledge. And if Kevin's with us, I'll hand it to him. And if not, it goes back to Shannon. Thank you, folks.
Kevin, anything before we take some questions? All right, we're going to dive in then. They're coming in as we speak. So I'm just going to hand it off to Hans, who started us off with the first question.
Thanks, Shaun. It was a great presentation. Quick question about HRV penetrations. This is really outside of the world of the penetrations, but are they being tested? I know that they're being tested closed during the blower door test. Are they being tested open later, or are they always closed?
Yeah, so it's different between passive house testing versus step code testing. Again, I prefer the passive house because you're looking at testing in both directions. So you're actually can see, if you've got air leaks. In the step code, you're only doing one, which again would have all the flaps closed. And so there's a bit of the fine tuning with that. So you're looking at some different numbers. But I like being able to do the passive house method because again, you're testing in both directions and making sure that you're fine tuning where your draft detection is equal in both those measures. A lot of times I've seen people pass and then they do the other one and it fails because I guess the flap got closed in one testing method and then it's wide open. So I like more detailed measurements, and that's where passive house really has something on my heart because we're diving in the details. Even in and again, not to disrespect the Hot 2000, but again, we're not looking at thermal bridges, and those can play a big part in the comfort level of our buildings. And so we're working on ensuring that we can always do PHVP on all of our projects moving forward, just because I want the numbers, I want the data. So I can kind of be like Tim McDonald, which I hope to be soon, where we just deliver passive house projects on everything we do. And then every once in a while, I'll be like, oh, hey, by the way, here's a plaque. By the way, we gave you a passive house. And we want to do that because the information and the cost to do that, like, again, we're in Vancouver, so a lot of our projects can afford this. And so I kind of want to apply that Tesla Roadster model to the industry where we can do it so that all of us can at least enjoy the Tesla Model 3, where we can enjoy all the benefits of this of high performance.
Shaun, it's Kevin here. Just wanted to help answer that question. Hans, I believe you were asking about the ERV, if that could be sealed or not.
Yeah, the actual duct opening. Yeah.
So as per Passive House and FIAS and the regular ASTM 779, it's acceptable to have the ERV always sealed during your test because the ERV is designed to run 24 hours, 7 days a week, both intake and exhaust. So it's an intentional opening that's always running constant pressure. Any unintentional opening that runs controlled, like a kitchen fan or a bath fan, that under PHI should be left open. Under regular ASTM 779 regular code compliance testing, that can be left, that can be closed. And under FIAS testing, they do two tests. They do a enclosure integrity test, which it's allowed to be sealed, and then they do an like a functional test. It may not be or air barrier function test, and then it's allowed to be opened. So that's the real ones. The more strictest one is the PHI one, where there's only very few things that are allowed to be matched. And Shaun's point of pressurized and depressurized is very important because certain dampers will blow open under pressurized and certain dampers will be pushed closed under depressurization. So
cool, thanks.
Mike, sorry. And Shaun, great presentation. I really appreciate your energy, your insight, and it was a great job.
Well, and just think of how much easier you're making the verifier's job when you have less holes, less things to tape when they test, right? And put them where they can reach them, please. So we did get some more questions while we were chatting. And the next one is from Bev Craig. Bev, would you like to unmute?
Shaun, great presentation. I feel like I should force everybody I know to watch this. So like the cost cutting stuff here, amazing. So my question is, like, most of us here are trying to get to passive house and are trying to be mindful of airtightness. Where do you see the biggest problem diverging from what your recommendations are?
Yeah, where I start off with a lot of builders is just they're not willing to do the work. And that's where we start off is if you're already putting on a membrane, why don't you just do it correctly? So it's just, if we're just starting off, say with Tyvek and Poly, because like 90% of the homes are doing that way, why don't you just do it to the manufacturer's specifications? Let's start there. Once you're there, then you could say, oh, then let's do a blower door test and see where we can make improvements. but we're working on kind of those initial humps to get there. And what's nice too is having more people get involved in this. We have, like, again, we're humans, we're competitive. We want to do better. We want to get to better scores, and we want to, you know, be able to achieve. And if the fact that we have people that are being friendly and saying, hey, I've done this, you can do it too. I will teach you. Come over here. Then we'll be able to grow the industry faster and furious, because people aren't going to be scared. It's going to be more of a collaboration to get things going. So the more that we're open, the more that we're connecting, and it's, maybe I'll just have a little Shaun story time here, is I went to Europe in 2011, and I was at the Wood conference, and I was sitting at a table with my dad and about 20 other individuals from Western Canada. And 4 of the biggest prefab companies were sharing their issues. Literally, one was like, hey, I can't do this profile. The guy called Hundiger and said, hey, we don't have this part in our house. Can you ship this guy, my competitor, a part so that they could excel? And my dad and I were just like, what's happening here? They were collaborating because they knew the 4 of them together were growing the pie, they were growing the over pie, and all their slices grew. And so that is not a typical North American business approach. And so I hope that we can all hug and work together so that we all grow the pie, because it's yummy. Let's share it.
I'm with you, Shaun. And not only are we growing the pie is growing just because everyone's getting in on it, right? So if we could make ourselves obsolete, we're just going to attack the next problem and be all in on that. So it's like the prescriptive method, or like, you know, using a really good tried and true neighbor in your climate and just copying everything they do. You can get there. And it's tips and tricks like you shared tonight that help people get there. And especially that inspire people on the job site, because that's where those holes happen. That's where the verifiers come out and either build the team or find out that they need to put them back together, to break them and put them back together. We have another question up here. Let's see, from Patrick. Patrick, would you like to unmute?
Yeah, hey, great presentation, Shaun. I was very happy with everything you're talking about. And my quick question was, do you have other, can you give us some options as far as liquid flashes? So on most of our builds, we use the zip system and their liquid flash, which is amazing. I love it. And we have a scheduled call with a rep from Polywall, and we're going to learn more about the Illuma flash. But I didn't know, I'm very interested in trying to find other options, especially where we're at in Northern California, and looking at also in Reno, like Nevada area, if there's other products that you prefer to use over like the zip system.
Yeah, so again, I'm a little biased because of my time at 475. So there are those products. Now, again, when I put on my accelerator hat, I am product agnostic, and I know there's some great products out there. We have Sega has some coming to the market. We've got some cool products coming across the pond that Mark might want to share. It's still working on some testing. So there are more coming. What I would say just to get started is look at the sponsors that are with the accelerator. Look at what they have to offer as a great start. And don't worry, that sponsorship is coming up in about 11 minutes. So I'm not gonna give you the answer. You're gonna have to sit and wait till you get all the great details. But we're really lucky that the sponsors that we have great products, that there's a lot of them. And the fun thing too about this is being able to ask the sponsors and say, hey, I'm trying to build better. Can you give me a sample, or can you give me some recommendations? And you'd be surprised about how collaborative this community is, where they're like, here you go, test it, tell us about it, tell your friends, put it on social media, because the more that people are playing around with it, the more that will grow. And you'll be surprised of like things that you might do that might not be, you know, the manufacturer's recommendations. And they're like, wow, we should actually get more people to do it that way, because that's pretty insightful. So just to answer the question is wait 11 minutes. The answer's coming. And two, when
Okay.
you find the answer, reach out to them and see if you can get some free product.
Okay, sounds great. Just want to give a quick shout out to Mark. Thanks for the samples, buddy. Looking forward to starting to use the T-studs.
We all are.
Yes, we are. I'm waiting in for my mail delivery too, Patrick. And I noticed your hoodie's really great, but they misspelled flyers. Needs a PH.
Yeah,
That's right.
You know, when you think about it, these teams could sell twice as much gear if they changed after a PH, and they fairly would love it. So real quickly, if we could, Shannon, can I invite everyone to just take yourself off mute for a second? Hold out your thumb or the glass you're having and spill it all over everywhere except for on your computer, and give a royal toast to Shaun. This was great. Let's hear it.
Here, here.
Yeah. Down the gullet.
Way to go, Shaun.
That's
Way to
it.
go, Shaun.
Fantastic.
Yeah, Shaun. Awesome job, Shaun.
Thanks.
Well, again, you know, I would have shown up if one person did. So the fact that more did, this is great because we got a lot of work to do, you know. And again, we got to bring our friends, we got to talk to our friends, we got to scale this up. So I appreciate that. It has landed, but at the same time, we got to get more going. So you know, we talk about the 10x factor. We need to do it. So thank you though.
We just need to clone Shaun St-Amour.
There's a lot
I'm
of
sure everyone in your life would love it
we said the same thing too when Kevin was on.
every
You know,
job
this
site.
happens. We all need to
You know,
clone.
speaking of clothing, Shannon, there's someone in the crowd that has my favorite hashtag, and that's apprenticeship is an obligation, right? So we're all supposed to be cloned. And apprenticeship is a two-way street. That means it's up to you to be a mentor. Pass the torch. Shannon, we got more questions. Who's next?
We have one more.
Okay.
From Prescott Perez Fox. Prescott,
Hey.
would you like to come on and unmute?
Yeah, okay, there we go, right? There we go.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone, again. So follow-up to Patrick's question, not specific to brand, but more generally to fluid applied. So, right, I'm just a simple country lawyer, but I imagine that something that has no shape is more versatile at sort of filling and maneuvering. So Shaun, what is perhaps the drawback? Why are not more projects covered in fluid applied? And especially you said like tapes are expensive, but every photo featured some kind of tape. So
Correct. So, but what was interesting in those photos is the membranes. So membranes are so mechanically fastening membranes, especially when you're putting on a furring strip. So just think about every 16 inches, you're clamping that membrane to behind it. And so any of the air barriers are now. So when you're looking from a cost per se, and I know there might be some liquid people out there, and so I'm happy to have this debate, but when you're looking for the issues of getting over the affordability issues, you're already putting on a mechanically fastened product, right? Our industry knows how to do that. We've been talking about how to make these connections. All now we're doing is make sure the tape is going to last 50 plus years, because that's typically what happens is you leave, you know, this is why, let's take a step back here of typically when we see a white product go on our buildings, it's hammer tacked, right? Well, that hammer tacked is to make sure that when they leave, that it doesn't blow away. Well, when we look at having a plan, we now only tack where we're going to lap or tape. And so now once you make those tape connections and you've connected, you could have, and I've seen it, tornadoes come through and membranes are staying on the walls because they're planned appropriately. You're not just tacking it. And I tell people is you should tape only, or so you should staple in your membrane only where you're going to tape or have a lap. So then in your field, there's no staples. You just have this nice product. And as I said, the manufacturer should change it and say comfort, healthy, resilient, durable, because most people would say, hey, those are good words. I want that.
And
So,
Shaun, our Canadian edition will be, I can handle Chinooks, right? There's a whole other way of saying that. Shannon, I want to slide things over if we can real quick. There's a gentleman that's wearing the red and the black flannel. Ladies and gentlemen, Jay Fox has a whole bunch for us.
Hey there. Well, Shaun, I'd like to first of all congratulate you on a wonderful presentation. That was very, very nice. It's my first one in a while because I've been dealing with a move. So it's really nice to come back and just see we still create some really, really quality content. So that being said, here we are. Okay, so thank you also to everybody coming tonight. We at the Accelerator would like to also thank our sponsors who allow us to put on such great events. So we're going to start with thanking our founding sponsors. It includes 475 High Performance.
Okay, you're in presentation. You got to go into presentation mode. Sorry, you're in.
I thought I had that lined up, right?
It's all right.
Thank you, Kevin.
No
Thanks,
problem.
Kevin.
I love the new haircut. That's the North Carolina cut. You went from the Brooklyn do to the North Carolina cut. I like it.
Yeah, I was starting to get a little squatchy down here, and so I figured I'd, get it cut, get a nice
Looks
shape.
great. I had to second guess. I was like, is that
Shannon, that new cut is called the halfback cut.
The halfback cut? Okay, cool. Where did I leave off? So 475 High Performance Building Supply, Bax Ingway Architects, Glavel Foam Glass Gravel, Minotaur All-in-One HVAC and Dehumidification Units, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, Rockwood North America, Stowe Corp, and Zola Windows. Thank you also to our champion sponsors, Icon Windows and Doors, Prosoco, and Siga. Also, thank you to our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA. That's the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. We'd also like to thank our patron sponsors. That's Aero Aggregates, Aero Barrier, Brennan, Brooklyn Solar Works, Euroline Windows, Inotech Windows and Doors, Lamelux, Owens Corning, RDH Building Science, Sanderson Sustainable Design, and US Engineered Wood, T-Stud. That is a way longer list of sponsors than I remember. So that means, the Accelerator is doing its job. All right, you can also check out, speaking of great content, you can check out the latest Passive House podcast now. Ilka Cassidy and Mary James speak with Clara Ha of Cho Shield Studios. They talk about Clara's experience overseeing small to medium scale projects designed for a sustainable environment. Really great conversation there. Tomorrow, very, very bright and early for us here in North America, especially Shaun, you can catch the 5th episode of Building Performance Interactive. Again, that's 9 a.m. Eastern or 6 a.m. Over on the West Coast. BPI co-host will be joined by Tim Martell, who will discuss the pH ribbon or fribbon, as I'm sure somebody here wants to call it, tool and its use in calculating embodied carbon in new masonry buildings. Finally, next week we have Jamie Hart, who will be at next week's Passive House Live Project Showcase Edition. He's from Public, and he'll be talking about the student housing at UBC Skeena. So with that, I will pass it back to the crew here, and I think Shannon.
Thanks, Jay. And yeah, that's a nice long list of sponsors. And we always invite you, if you're interested in sponsoring, to get in touch with us. And even better, if you have a project that you want to share, or even just a little video snippet of something you're building that is Passive House centric, please share it with us at info@passivehouseaccelerator.com. And I think, Mark, turnabout is fair play. What would you like to ask Mr. Shaun St-Amour?
Oh, it's one of my favorite questions. This was started in the very beginning of construction tech by the one and only Kevin Brennan, and it's one of our favorite questions to ask. We've heard part of it in the presentation, and it may or may not be what we hear today. But Shaun, mentor, can you please shed some light on some people in your life that have been impressionable?
I have to default to 2. So we have Miss Sandra Roller, who and Marcel Studer, who taught the Passive House tradesperson that really kicked it off at BCIT. And the reason that I'm so inspired by what they've done, and I'm in awe of them and can never express enough gratitude for what they've done to the local community here in Vancouver. But I mean, we now have tradesperson programs kicking off, at different colleges across Canada that really come back to what they started. And I took the course in January of 2017. And on the final Friday, I had enough gumption to go up to Marcel and Alex and said, hey, would you guys need more instructors? And they were like, you know what? Yes. And they guided me and taught me how to present. And I can tell you that when you present, you need to be smarter than the group. And so you learn everything and you fine tune. And I've always been an advocate of learning. My learning curve is literally a vertical line. I don't think it's going to hit this until I'm, in a wooden box. But those two inspired me because, they made big commitments. They moved from Europe to Canada, moved their families to get here, and then figured out what they were passionate about, and then decided to say, hey, you know what? We need to teach this. And for those two, I like I said, I will always be in debt to their hard work. And they're the nicest people. And so the fact that they are able to get, me started in my career and let me find my pathway as an educator and a person that's passionate about this, they're fantastic. So we're in good hands with people like Sandra and Marcel in our world.
Thanks, Shaun. That was a great point, and you're one of the most sharing people I know. And one of the quotes that I like to point on is, those that share the most, teach the most, gain the most trust. And it's something, even though we've been COVID buddies, in person, you're one of the people who shares the most. And even online as a community. And I wish you best of luck in your new job. And look forward to working with you for many, many, many more episodes of Construction Tech.
Yeah, so I mean, my challenge is to figure out, again, these issues. And I have to say, what I've learned in even the last 3 or 4 weeks is just, the modeling that we're using. I just love PHP because it's just the details, it's the millimeters, it's like the fine things where some of the other ones, again, they're good, right? They're great. They're a great benchmark, but I think we can move the industry further so that people have a great understanding of why there's the current benchmark of modeling at our current codes and why the passive house is so much better. And I would hope that at some point we don't need to reinvent the wheel. We can copy and paste and pat people on the back and say, you know what, that was amazing what you did. Can we just relabel it or reuse or whatever? Like the fact that we're now incorporating the ribbon or the fibbon into PHP is amazing. So now we're able to look at passive house principles with low embodied carbon materials and figure out how to build a zero carbon building. Like, this is great. We just need to get things moving forward to the masses. And you know what? I'm passionately irritated that it's taking so long, but the fact that it's going this way just means that it'll get there sooner and faster, because we're all demanding this change. We're all demanding that that people get educated, that they see the difference of why, we're out there with our, on our soapboxes talking to people. But we're, and Mark, I caught myself there, is that we're trying to make sure that we're educating and inspiring people that the knowledge that we have is for the betterment of our society, that we're getting rid of shelters and cabins and giving clients high performance homes that literally can be their shell from the outside environments. And again, here in Vancouver, Monty, talked about it. In the heat dome, we had 600 people die in their shelter because they thought that home was supposed to take care of them, and it didn't. The shelter that we rely on to keep us away from the outdoor elements didn't help us out. And yet we know how to create a building that can cocoon us from the outside environment. And so let's give it to them.
And I can see why you are having a hard time being patient, even though you're one of the most patient people I know. But when you're trying to give somebody a present and you're wrapping it up so nice and airtight, and you're giving them that pretty tape like a bow, you just want them to take it.
Yeah.
It's right there for the taking. I am 100% with you, Shaun. And I just want to thank everyone who comes every week to further their knowledge, to chat in the chat and share products, to push this forward. I want to look at both certifying bodies and appreciate how much they evolve themselves to take on the next challenge, because the more we can copy and paste, the more we can make it prescriptive within climate zones and attack what's next, the faster we'll solve that problem too. It's a big problem and it needs solving. And I'm really excited about the hands-on piece that we're focusing on this year, being in the field, showing folks how it's done, because we can design it all day long. If it isn't built, it isn't going to supply you with what? You've got 5 awesome benefits, right? And I would love to hear from people, what's your number one favorite out of these, right? My favorite, I'm going to name them in order of favorite. Health. The first one for me is always health, right? And then the second one is always comfort, because I'm a creature of comfort. And then, of course, the efficiency, right? The efficiency. And then we get into the resiliency. The power goes out, I'm not going to freeze to death. The power goes out, I only need like 1 solar panel to run everything that matters to me. And then longevity. Like you said in the beginning of your presentation, your buildings are 10 years ahead of the step code that, is the lowest level. It's great to be 10 years ahead. You're before your time, but it's a good thing you're patient, Shaun.
Yeah.
Well, if anyone else has a comment or some news to share, we'd love to hear from you before we wrap it up for the night. It is an early night, but since Shaun hasn't cloned himself yet, I'm sure he could take an early night.
Well, here, why don't we wrap things up for the first hour, because we love, because we never know what happens in the overtime. So if you need to leave us, thank you for joining us for another week of Passive House Accelerator Live Construction Edition with my lovely co-hosts Shannon, Kevin, and Mark. And I have to say, it was tough to bring a little bit of nugget of information after there was a great month's worth of airtightness discussed from our favorite friends, Ed May, Kevin, and Sean Taylor. So thank you for the airtightness. Now you have to come back to next week where we get into March, and it'll come in like a lamb or a lion, but you got to come to figure out what is the theme of March. So if you got to leave us, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Otherwise, let's get into the overtime.
Thanks, Shaun. I have some good news to share. One of the projects that I've been working on for almost 3 years that I'm really not supposed to talk about in public. We did our semi-final blower door test, all windows, doors, and everything in, and we hit 0.5 ACH at 50, our best number to date as a group for a retrofit. So big achievement. It wouldn't be possible without good clients and good architects and the good guys that work on my team. But it's probably our best to date, and very proud moment. But I can't show you any pictures of it.
Well, without the pictures, it's kind of like all of us applauding and toasting on mute. So again, let's have some fun and honor these accomplishments. Unmute, give a toast to Kevin and his team for not letting that air get in and out.
Yeah.
Cheers, Kevin. Here.
Go. Way to go, Kevin. Congratulations. We got another question in the meantime from, we got a couple from Jason. Jason, would you like to unmute?
Shaun, great presentation. Appreciate the energy. Just wondering, how do you usually deal with airtightness at the doors, especially if the threshold has to be wheelchair accessible?
Yeah, great question. So, again, when we're looking at our penetrations, schedule and looking at where there could be potential failures in the envelope, that one there could be ones where like, okay, well, we can't get to 0, but we can get to 0.6, minus that leakage there. It's definitely tricky. And this is why, doors are always the nemesis. I mean, Scott Kennedy can talk about doors. Monty, they've always said for years is like, oh, we need a door that can do all these amazing things. Those doors are coming to market. But so to answer your question is, I got to go back to a project. It's the Nanaimo Passive House. And they used a Euroline window, but as a door. And how they dealt with it, they actually had a really cool metal ramp that allowed for a wheelchair to get up over, in a sense, a pretty beefy passive house frame. And they were able to make sure the door was airtight, but they took care of the accessibility. So Jason, I'd have to say is, when you get to these complex situations of air tightening details, is sometimes it's always good to maybe take a step back, think outside the box, and how do you manage it? I know, we kind of laugh in North America, or sorry, the Europeans kind of laugh at us, is like they just have two doors, one that deals with the passive house and then one that deals with all the other things. And then they have, the structure space in between to manage these two doors. Here in North America, we're like, oh yeah, we're going to get rid of the vestibule and we'll get one door to do it all. And it becomes quite a challenge. So dealing with those, Jason, is there are window and door manufacturers that are coming out with better doors and better systems, and better local resources. So I think Cascadia and Innotech are kind of leading locally in those areas. But again, is the more air sealing and more bulbs you put on, the better chance you can get a seal. So the question is just, when you've got that low threshold, how can you get 3, millimeters apart, so that when it closes, you still have that profile, but you're getting enough compaction to get it in there. So, when you're looking at those doors, aim for 3 seals, and hopefully they've been able to figure it out how to make sure you got the low profile.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shaun. I missed a question earlier, and thank you, Mary James, for bringing it to my attention. Joshua in PDX, would you like to come on and ask your question from earlier?
Oh, sure. Thanks, Shaun. It's brilliant. I was really looking forward to this evening because we see you on here every week, and it's been a while since I came back. So to echo everyone else, thanks for the energy. It's always exciting to see you up here. My question was, we're going to be building our own home. I'm an architect here in PDX, and it's going to be small. So any kind of tips or tricks or things to watch out for people who might not be experienced in the trades, for airtightness?
So at this stage, since you haven't built it, I can say the form of your design is your best you can do. So you saw the design that Sean Taylor put on, where it's got 6 sides. It's pretty easy to make a box. And the thing about that is, and Marcel, again, going back to talk about mentors, he's actually built 2 beautiful boxes where all the jewelry or all the really nice features are outside the thermal envelope. So for you to, literally just take the box, wrap it, make sure you've got a slope on your roof to make sure that we're shedding the bulk water, right? Because as I said, if we can't keep water out, then we built a bad home. And then after that, make it look good, whatever you need to do afterwards. So that just to summarize then, is the number one goal would be to keep your form compact. I have lots of conversations with people these days about, how much square feet humans need. I've kind of go back to one of my other mentors, Abby Friedman, who was in that list there that I showed. He says a family of 4 should be okay in 600 square feet. And now we're seeing that in Vancouver of these townhouses and quads that are getting to that. So, but that being said, I've seen some amazing high performance tiny homes that I could easily live in. And I like transformers, and that modularity could easily work for me. Wouldn't maybe work out for some other my family members, but so you can make things work and save the space. And just remember too, is so in Vancouver, where the average cost to build is anywhere between $250 and say, $400 a square foot in the high performance world. Just think about every square foot you're about to build, the cost of it. Would you want to use that money somewhere else? If you like traveling, okay, well, guess what? You save yourself 4 square feet. You got a trip to somewhere fun. So just be aware of those kinds of things when you're planning these things out. Is how much space do you really want to live in and clean and maintain versus using that money somewhere else to do something else that's more fun, for what you're working towards.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, we're looking at 400 square feet for my partner and I. Small idea. So yeah, thank you. Appreciate everything.
Yeah.
Joshua, two things. T's,
Yeah.
technical data sheets, instruction manuals, and actual performance data from the manufacturers as a system. So tried and true systems brought to the table for a project that come together, and you can go the full gamut with airtightness. 400 square feet will be a large challenge for, don't judge yourself on ACH. Go for CFM per square foot, my friend. 400 square feet is not easy to get tight.
All right, so this is a good segue. It's great we're doing this in the overtime. So somebody mentioned it that that I'm creating something with my dad. So we are, and this is, bear with me here, this is gonna take a couple minutes because I wanna make sure it's elaborate and detailed because I really want to inspire all of you to follow along with what's happening here in Vancouver. So we talked about it in the fall about experience, passive house experience. And what that means is my dad needed to have a place, a cave person room, a shed. We've decided to call it the Fart Shack. And of course, we spell it with a PH. So it's actually Passive House Art Shack. And the reason that it's 108 square feet so that my dad can go and have his creative spirits, carry on. And the reason that we're doing this is that my dad and I used to be builders and we never got a chance to actually build a passive house. We built an icebox challenge that went around North America and proven everything. But we never actually built one. I was planning on building one, didn't work out. So my dad is now retired and he's like, Shaun, I'm disappointed that we never built a passive house. And I said, okay, Dad, guess what? There's this amazing gentleman named Chris Hill from B Collective who wrote to the government and got a good chunk of change to create something called BOSS, which is Building Offsite Sustainable Systems. And so guess what? He needed a mock-up. Shaun loves a mock-up. Kevin loves a mock-up. Shannon loves a mock-up. Mark loves a mock-up. And so guess what? We turned the mock-up for the BOSS system into the Fart Shack. So this shed is actually being built off-site at a prefab shop because Shaun loves prefab. So Tag Panels has actually built it. We're just now waiting to get the footings poured, which should have been today. And we'll get the base made on the weekend, and March 3rd, so Thursday, March 3rd, we'll be moving it from Squamish to Vancouver. We've got great sponsors that Chris and the team at B Collector were able to get ramp up. We got Intertech Windows. So my dad is going to be able to have himself a Fart Shack. And that's not the first one. We have another one going on at Porchlight Homes. They needed to have their own shack so they can have an office to show clients who are coming into the prefab facility being like, what am I buying here? And like, well, you're buying these wall systems. And there's more coming because we want people to experience a passive house. Right, Mark?
I've only been on Zoom for 2 years, still figuring out the whole mute thing. So exactly, Shaun sometimes says it one way, sometimes says it another way. And that's kind of the point. Which way do you say it? Which way does your community need to hear it? If you also want to create that at a small scale and create the example, whether you call it experience, passive house, or whether you call it passive house experience, or whether you call it something that's original and includes the XPH, we welcome you to introduce yourself to experience at passivehouseaccelerator.com, and we'll collect your information there and get back to you.
And we're formulating all the good rules to get that competition going. So get your clients ready for the idea that you're going to ask them to be interviewed about their experience in a passive house. Get your builders to think about getting on video and talking about their experience. Get your team together and get ready to submit a little something to us soon. We have a question from Ian, but he doesn't have his sound tonight. So I'm going to ask it for him. And Shaun, he was looking at your truss slide and he wanted to know what insulation was in the loft. I think it was the plenum truss that we're all loving on so much. He wanted to know what the cost difference and the implications of on-site prefab versus truss installed, like off-site.
Yeah, again, we look at cost. Cost is always a fun thing. And Mark, Mark's answer is going to be, what's the cost of groceries? Even here in Vancouver, we've got 6 different truss manufacturers. They're all going to give you a different price. They're going to be pretty close to what the numbers is. The interesting about that, and the reason I included that slide in the presentation, is that is a building envelope consultant that was thinking outside of the box for somebody that was like, oh, you didn't want to do a service cavity, so why isn't the truss manufacturer provided, and what would it look like? When you're looking at the cost, it would be cheaper to get the truss and get some raised heels and raise it up the 6 inches so you can do a service cavity across. I just wanted to give you that solution as an option. But again, you got to take it to your manufacturer and see what they can do. And you could look at it, oh, do you raise the whole truss up and then do a service cavity across, or do you get it built in that different way? Again, I'm here to share, innovate, inspire, and make sure that you've got some technology, and some techniques to go down your merry way.
I'm figuring out that mute button too, Mark. I really want to invite the designers out there to draw that truss. Get your structural engineer to make sure those little cross members are sized properly, and send it to the truss manufacturer and tell them that's what you want. They'll build it.
Yeah.
That's what they're there for. They love doing that stuff. Give them something new to do. I love that system where you have that chase all the way down the building. And, I've seen people use it for all kinds of different things. So I don't know if we have any more questions. If I missed your question, please put it back in the chat and we'll have a chance to answer it. But if not, I'm fresh out.
Just before we go, I want to give Suk a chance to chat. I owe him some information, but I got to work with him on one of the first passive houses. It's actually, I guess, the second passive house in Surrey, where he went down the path. He was going to go with putting a whole bunch of rock wool on the outside, and he went with the I-joist outrigger approach. And I have to say, he worked with one of the first passive house designers here in Vancouver, Mark in Design, Alex, who now moved to Austria. But Suk, what was your final blower door score on your passive house?
0.42.
So again, congrats to, building his first passive house, and hopefully you got more in the pipeline.
There's 2 more on the pipeline, yeah.
Fantastic. So again, there it is. So I'm actually competing with him to try to keep it going, because he put his stake in the ground 2 years ago and said, I only build passive houses. This is what I'm going to do. And it's a pretty beautiful design. The Euroline windows that come right on a 90, and he did some great stuff. And I'm really lucky to have collaborated with him and the community to again, using cellulose. It's not commonly used here in Vancouver. He put a lot of patience and work ethic, and I'm pretty sure the homeowner is enjoying the benefits of that home. And actually, Suk, why don't you just talk about the kitchen you did, because you took the kitchen outside of the thermal envelope and made its own little cube so that the client could have their own
walk kitchen.
So
what we did, the walk kitchen is in the passive house. It's outside the passive house too. So what we did, we put the door there, which is a door, passive house door, so they can open the door, and once they go, they can go in and they can lock it back again, and then without locking the door, the fan will not go on. The kitchen exhaust will not go on. But we have we balance the intake and outtake, so that's how we did it.
It's great, Suk. I mean, I know the homeowner's there, but maybe that's one of those things where we can maybe go back and do a video and gather it now that things are a little slowing down for me. I appreciate, again, you know, you were very decisive in getting into Passive House. You found a client, you worked with a great team, and you're persistent. And
you were a big help there too. You came so many times to help me out.
Well, it's a team, and I still owe you. So now that I'm done again, I promise I'll get you the information you need to get your certification. So, but again,
thank you.
For all of us that are moving forward, you know, let's just keep collaborating, help each other out. You know, again, it's all these little tricks that we learn and can share and move the ball forward. So thank you for the opportunity to let me share my insights. Go ahead, Jen.
Oh yeah, we've got one more question. I am so sorry, Michael. I totally spaced. I must just have a pinhole in the brain. Jump on in and ask your question.
Yeah, so based on what Kevin had said, that the intermittent ventilation is not does not qualify for sealing off during the blower door test, my thought immediately jumped to kitchen ventilation. So is there any sort of damper that is typically used that either Shaun or Kevin or anyone else has experience with? I know Vlad posted something, but it looked like it may have been plastic, which probably wouldn't play nice with US codes for grease-laden kitchen ducts.
I'll dive on that. There's it's the grades of dampers that go into it and the controls. So what I've been seeing commonly in commercial construction is these, I believe it's an Italian company. The actuator is called Belimo, and then you can get different grades of dampers, like grills that it controls. And then there are certain classes that make it more airtight than others. So the edges of the damper itself will have these other, these like kind of like more rubberized, you know, like silicone-y kind of edges to them. So depending on your application.
That should be super easy. Those are very readily available for like variable air volume systems and whatnot.
Yep. And then the general rule of thumb for me is you want to put that damper at the line where the air barrier is. So if you were venting a kitchen exhaust, put it at the wall. Imagine it's a fire smoke damper and put it at the mising wall right there. And then that'll be at your air barrier. So any internal duct leakage won't be a leakage in your air barrier system because it's right in line. In is in, out is out. And then same thing on the makeup air. The makeup air would need the same thing, and then you would need to have controls. If you have control over it and the damper's closed tight, it doesn't penalize your blower door because it has dampers. No dampers, they should be left open. So that's kind of the rule of thumb for very strict PHI blower door testing. The European norm 13829, that's what sets the standard for international passive house blower door testing. And then as you go to different standards and code requirements, then it changes slightly, you know, based on who you're testing with. But the verifier from FIAS will do two types of blower door tests. One is the enclosure integrity test, where everything is sealed to you. So you want to know just the leakage rate of your blower door and your doors and of your air barrier system, of your windows and doors and everything. And then you take it off and you know your actual functional air barrier test or system check.
Awesome. Those should be super easy to control too. Just a current sensing relay on your stove could probably flip on the fans as well as those dampers. So perfect. Thank you.
We've done one system where it was temperature. So once it got over 80, 90 degrees, it would, or, you know, something like 120, like 80, 90 degrees, something greater than ambient air, it would turn on knowing that you're cooking. And that was for a flue.
Kevin, is that your dog throwing things around? Or what do I hear in the background?
She's chewing on my new T-stud. She thinks it's a great chew toy. She's tossing it around the kitchen. It's adorable.
I think all dogs think that it's a really good thermal break.
If a border collie can't break it, nobody can. Up. See? She's got it.
It's always nice when your dog matches your outfit. I tell you what, the more they're around, the more we look like them, right?
I've been told I'm a doggable. Did you see my T-stud picture? Oh, you can't see it.
Nice.
I got the camera back. Sam finally gave it back.
It's amazing, Sam. It's about time. It's been returned. It's a beautiful thing.
Long overdue.
You know, this could be kind of a trend. What if we had like new tool tip at the end of our construction tech? Anybody have a new tool that they bought?
Do you want me to remortgage my house?
Yes.
Oh, there you go, Michael. We have played with an additional T in the TTTs. And I would vote right here and now that tool becomes the fourth T in the technical technique and technology. David's given a thumbs up. So as far as boardroom politics goes, that's a pass in my book.
We lost it Tuesday. Why don't we add the tools?
Say, well, it's unanimous then. Like in Chicago, vote early and vote often. So that's a pass.
Just saying, Fudge wanted to say hi. We're doggy sitting with this lovely guy.
Did you say that was Fudge with a PH?
That is Fudge. Yes, that's exactly why I went to get Fudge.
And I also saw Michael had a dog that was in the blanket and out of the blanket. Aaron's got big dog in the background there. Awesome. So Shannon, how do you have questions?
I think I'm out. If I missed your question, please unmute yourself now and let us know. We'd love to hear your questions if I missed one. And if not, I think it's time we all give a final cheers to Shaun.
Cheers to all of you too. Thanks for showing up.
And for the record, we've had 4 dogs in the program. That's 4 with PH. Well, 5 with PH. Thank you, Michael. It's been 5 with a PH.
I have 2.
You have 2.
That makes 6. Count's going up.
Talk about tools. This is one of my favorites.
That was easy.
So Shaun, that's funny. When you held the button up, you couldn't see it on your side, but it highlighted the word ass on your background. It's the funniest thing about screensavers. Patrick, that makes dog number 6. Beautiful. So folks, we were, yeah, look at that. And Joshua, okay, now we're up to like 8. So, hey, everyone with dogs, remember, if you bring a dog into the beginning of the show, our numbers will go up. When you do it in the second hour, it doesn't help the attendance rate. Come on now. And here's Norm's got his. Gee whiz.
Norm, what's your dog, Norm?
Oh, we've gone to the dogs.
We all have the dogs. Dogs are in the house.
Go get his dog.
This is Wilbur, big dumb Boston Terrier.
Oh, I love Boston Terrier.
Great name.
There's Jeffrey's got his cat. So Shannon, next week, let's say put the name of your pets in the chat, and we'll get the chat going.
Mark, can I, as we're ending airtightness month at
Yes.
Passive House Accelerator, can I tell a funny story?
Yeah, tell a PH joke.
So I don't know how many years ago it was, but I didn't realize what time of month it is. It was springtime, and I read this news release that USGBC put out about lead construction, and they put it out that they had this new way of finding air leaks in buildings, where they trained a dog to find air leaks in the building, and it was known as the blower dog. Right. So me being a gullible guy who doesn't know the date and look at any research, I called my buddy who was a former kind of like police trained, and I'm like, dude, I need to get a dog. I need to train it to find leaks. This is going to be great. I'm going to make a whole business on it. I know how to use a blower door, and then I can train the dog where the leaks are going to go. And he tells me, he's like, are you an idiot? It's April 2nd. It was an April Fool's joke. Dogs can't smell air. What are you putting bacon in the air? And it was the first time I was like, oh, USGBC got me
Fabulous.
on
You
April
could double
Fool's
with
Day.
your dog walking system.
If your job was in Staten Island, I'm pretty sure they could find the leak.
The outside air is just as bad as the inside air.
Yeah.
So everybody get your April Fool's jokes ready for Kevin
Patrick.
for next year.
Sorry, I got caught on the Bernese Mountain Dog after the Newfoundland. It's just one breed after another.
Yeah.
We have some good looking, we have better looking dogs than hosts on this show.
That's what she said.
Shannon, hosts, not hostess.
I know.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So we have a show tomorrow, right? We have the over the pond thing going on. Is that tomorrow?
6 a.m. folks, 6 a.m. That means it's a 5:30 a.m. rise and shine for this kid who's got to help out Zach, who's taking a little R&R time with his family. So I'm happy to help out and manage the controls with Jay. Sorry, I was like, okay, I gotta make sure I get the coffee started at about 5:05.
I'm coming on around 9 EST. I'm hoping to, because I really want to see that presentation. I want to see this pH ribbon in action, and I just love hanging out with Ireland.
So pH ribbon tomorrow at what did you say, 9 Eastern?
9 EST, Eastern Standard.
Okay, so if you're Atlantic or Pacific, do the conversion and be up early with Shaun or later with Aaron. And we have a tradition then. And if you wouldn't mind, Mr. Kevin Brennan, and if you wouldn't mind, Miss Shannon Pendleton, could you please change your background?
I can't. I switched computers. I don't have it. I gotta go find it. I'll be right back. You guys go with that. Go ahead without me. I'll try to find it.
Shannon, we could. You're fine. You don't need to find it.
Hey, Kevin, why don't you kick us off? Who's first? This is you, Shaun.
Oh, sorry.
One thing you're not allowed to say is Tuesday.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. We need to delete Tuesday.
All right, everybody. Passive House Accelerator Construction Tech. Technical, technique, technology. Formerly on a Tuesday. Now, maybe we bring tools? Maybe. Mr. PH Molnar. Sorry, I got to reach out to you because you're still hanging around with PH. So bring it to us.
Passive House Accelerator, Construction Tech, Technical, Technique, Technology with Tools. Jeffrey, you turn.
Passive House Accelerator, Construction Tech, Technical, Technique, and Technology.
Who's next, Jeffrey?
Hey, Norm, how about you?
Right. Passive House Accelerator, Construction Tech, Technical, Technique, Technology. I'll pass it to, how about Michael?
Passive House Accelerator, Construction Tech, Technique, Technology, Technical. There's a go. And tools, and refinancing your house to pay for said tools.
The guy who does Donald Duck isn't here, right?
I know.
Maybe Shaun, you could say it as if your dog Fudge would say it. Everyone has their dog, how their dog's inner persona. What do you think the dog would say?
Passive House Accelerator Construction Tech, Technical, Technique, Technology from Fudge. My favorite dog. Oh, here we go. Oh.
All right.
That's a wrap, folks. We'll see you next week. Thanks
And
for being here.
remember,
Well done, Shaun.
always have an air barrier strategy.
You made a pledge, folks. You made a pledge. I heard it.